Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and oh, man, do we have another great show. It's so easy every week. Great guests, great book. I get a great show. It's great. It's just great being me. That's what I'm going to tell you. It is great being me. Listen, today's show, Aim for the Uprights, author Stu Crum, The Intentional Playbook for Success, Faith, Family, and Business. Folks, I just want to tell you right now, run and get it. No, just get on your phone, get it. It's so good. I enjoyed, everybody knows I read every book before I do the show. This one was just an absolute fun, enjoyable read. The practical applications that Stu Crum and I are going to talk about today are for you. I don't care where you're at. I don't care where you live. Listen, I know we're in 112 countries around the world. I'm telling you right now, what we're going to talk about is for you. I promise you it is. You want to live a more successful life. You want to live a life of leadership. You want to live a life of integrity. You want to live a life that you have not lived, then this is the show for you. I'm just telling you that right now. Stu Crum is absolutely fantastic. The book is fantastic. And I'm excited to do that. But before we get to him, let's do what we do every week, right? We're 4-part people. Right? We're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual people. And the fact of the matter is, we are never stagnant. In fact, if we're not growing, we're dying. I have no other way to put that for you. I'm sorry, but that's just the fact. And so we got to be working on ourselves every single day of the week. And so what we do on this show every week is we have you check in and evaluate where you're at on a scale of 1 to 10 in each of these areas. 1 being, can't get any worse. 10, it can't be any better. So for example, in the physical area, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say you're doing when it comes to eating right, getting enough exercise, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, taking care of your body? 5 being average, what would be that number? Now, listen, before some of you out there are going, oh, Jay, it's a 2. Okay, can I tell you something? I don't want you to beat yourself up about that. I want you to treat that as a starting point. This is where we build from, all right? So how do we get from a 2 to a 2.5? Because you're not going to go from a 2 to a 10, okay? But let's just get to 2 to a 2.5. What might that look like? I don't know. Get your hand out of the chips. Put the sodas down, right? Cut back on the sugar, right? There's several things that you could be doing. That, take a walk, right? Whatever it may be, do something small that you can start taking a small step in that direction so that what you can do is you can start changing your life physically. All right, that's your first number, all right? Second number is the mental intellectual number. And here's the thing, folks, I could sit on this book all day long. I am not going to get anything out of it. All right. We have to be an active participant in our learning, in our growth, in our knowledge, and our wisdom. And if we are not actively participating in that, we're not growing. Right. I love reading books. That's part of my growth, but it's not the only thing that I do. Right. I listen to others. I get mentored. I study other things, right, to improve my intellectual mental growth. And so what are you doing out there actively to be an active participant in mental intellectual growth, right? And what number would you give yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? That's your second number. Third number is your emotional number. And I love the fact that Stu in his book talked about that it's not IQ, it's EQ. And what's beautiful about that is that we have emotional intelligence. And I like to divide it up like this, right? And that is the first part of it is how well are you able to control your emotions under stress and pressure? You ever been hangry? Right? You're hungry and angry. How about when that guy cuts in on you in traffic? How do you feel about that? How do you do? Or you're waiting in line at the grocery store and the lady all of a sudden decides, I got to pick up a checkbook. Right? But it's in the car. How you doing there? Right? That's the first part. The second part of it is, how well are you able to tap into and understand the emotions of another person? Sometimes that's even more difficult because we don't have the emotional vocabulary to be able to truly understand how another person's feeling. But it is equally as important. So if you put those two together on a scale of 1 to 10, what would that be like for you? What's the number? Okay, that's your third number. Fourth number is spiritual. Listen, we are spiritual beings in a physical body. I have no other way to describe that, but that's just the fact. If you remove the physical, mental, and emotional, what you have left, you have the spiritual being. We connect with each other far beyond the emotional or the intellectual or the physical. We connect with each other on a spiritual level. The fact of the matter is, we all live by faith. You know what you did? You pushed your button on your car believing it was going to start. You sipped your coffee believing it wasn't poisonous. You saw the walk sign on the street. You walked believing the cars weren't going to hit you. You've made plans for the future believing that they're going to happen. It's all faith. That's spiritual. All of it's spiritual. What brings you back to centeredness in the midst of your chaos? Is it God? Is it nature? Is it meditation? Is it something else that you rely on? And let me ask you this question. How's it working for you? And what might you need to do to change it? So what number would you give yourself in the spiritual area? Those 4 areas like the air in the tires of your car. If one tire is low, do you know what happens? Well, the car is going to be hard to steer, right? But what happens if all 4 tires are too low? Well, you're going to ruin the car over the course of time. And speaking of someone who's got his tires all to the right level, his name is Stu Crum. When Stu Crum's college football heroics put him in the national radar as a model student athlete, the expectations for a bright future could not have predicted his soaring ascent in business. Tagged as a winner with a natural gift for leadership, Stu made his name internationally in key positions with Texaco, Shell Oil, Jiffy Lube, and Bridgestone, wrangling deals with the likes of activist investor Carl Icahn and other heavy hitters. Yet beneath the surface lay a deeper man. While still at Tulsa University, Stu devoted his life to his faith and embraced servant leadership as his game plan for ultimate success in business, family, faith, and fun. Despite personal setbacks and injury-laden stints with the NFL and USFL, Stu blossomed at every turn by developing a simple, dynamic playbook that put his every aspiration within reach. He calls it intentional living, and the book is entitled Aim for the Uprights. And he joins us now here on A New Direction. Stu Crum, welcome to A New Direction.
Thank you, Coach Jay, and absolutely thrilled to be with you. And after your introduction of those 4 things, I'm kind of pumped. I'm ready to go out to battle right now.
If you're ready, brother, I'm ready to go with you.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do this thing. I'm ready to do it.
That was great.
I love that. First of all, I don't know if we'll ever get to chapter 60, but yet it's when living starts. That's all I'm going to tell you right now.
Oh, right, man, I'm pumped.
All right, I'm just telling you. I just got hit before I came to the show. I just got hit in the my dummy doing kickboxing and boxing, and I'm telling you what, I'm fired up. I'm sorry.
That's great.
So you've divided this book, Aim for the Uprights, the intentional playbook for success in faith, family, and business. You divide this up into 3 sections, and first section is titled Game On, and we're just going to jump right in. Chapter 1 is called Motivating Force, and you start the book by talking about you've got a Bridgestone offer while you're at Jiffy Lube.
Mm-hmm.
And I want the listener to know that he tells a little snippet of his life. And then what he does, he has what's called the intentional playbook. But before he gives you to the intentional playbook, he has a Stu Speaks section, right? I just want to read what he wrote here, because I think for you folks that listening, wherever you're at, write this down. Not while you're driving, please. Don't do that. Here's what he says. A fundamental aspect of experience is its ability to teach resilience. Through each setback, we become stronger and more equipped to face future hurdles with determination and confidence. By the way, they're all that good. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, they're all that good. They're so good. So let's talk about this intentional playbook. Let's talk about being intentional, the mini camp for rookies, but maybe you want to lead us in how we get there from Bridgestone to Jiffy Lube.
Yeah, so at the time I was president of Jiffy Lube, and Jiffy Lube is the largest lube company in the U.S. It's a franchise business running about 2,200 stores, and I got recruited by a headhunter to go to Bridgestone to run the retail business, which is 2,300 stores, 23,000 teammates, about a $4 billion business. And when I was recruited, they actually said, Stu, you got a big job ahead of you. This company is a 100-year-old company formed by Harvey Firestone. Think about who Harvey Firestone was. He invented the tire in the U.S., right? I mean, he was a legend. He says, but the business needs to change, and we need to know if you're up to changing it. And that meant I had to make some really hard decisions. I had to come in and assess the talent, but in the end, I ultimately had to let go about 70% of my senior leaders. And these are guys that loved the company, had been there from 35 to 45 years. but they weren't the right people to take us into the next generation, next business. And I would tell you, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my career. And I've been a CEO 3 times since then. But I was told I had to do that, from the chairman of the company when they were hiring me. But beyond that, it was the right thing to do.
Hmm. So let's talk about the mini camp for rookies, being intentional, because being intentional, the intentional playbook is everything. And maybe we should start with when you thought about building this intentional playbook, help the
Yeah.
listener and the viewer understand what was your intention about getting them to understand the intentional playbook.
Yeah. So this really started at a very young age for me, and I've got to go back to football. And Coach, I know you're a former football player as well, so you understand this. But age of 13, I decided that I wanted to be a professional athlete. Now, how many 13-year-olds think they're going to be professional athletes? A lot, right? And I think one half of kids end up being there. But I was committed from a very young age, and I'm a place kicker, so I'm not a huge uh, person that when people look at are intimidated. Nobody's ever intimidated by me. Uh, but at the age of 13, I decided I'm going to start kicking footballs, and I was a soccer player at the time. And in the winters, I kicked 100 footballs into a hockey net in my basement because I lived in St. Louis. In the summers, I kicked outside, of course. But what I learned very early on in my career that I had to set a goal for myself, and that's really when I kind of started my intentional playbook. I mean, it really kind of started at 13. It obviously evolved into my adulthood, and there were 8 things I said you got to do to be intentional. One is got to have purpose. A purpose is simply a goal, right? What is your purpose? And by the way, when I started writing this book, it really started as a leadership book. It morphed into a book about life, which was interesting because that was not my intention. I realized as I started putting a lot of these pages together that um, I was very intentional in my marriage. I'm married, be 40 years this year, right? And we adore each other more today than we did 40 years ago when we were dumb and stupid and didn't know me better. Um, and I was very intentional in raising my children, and I've been intentional just about everything. And I realized that my leadership style has been developed over a number of years of just everything I've done in my life. If I'm going to do with intention. And so, once again, purpose. Then what are your priorities? You got to figure out your priorities are. You got a goal, but what are your priorities? And then you got to remove distractions. There's eight steps in this, and the reason that's so important. And I told my son this always as a young man growing up. The people you hang around with are the people that you're going to be like as you get older, right? I mean, it really is true. So I try to surround myself with people that I think are a lot smarter and a lot better than I am, because they make me better. They just simply make me better. So you got to do distractions, and then harmony. Once you're going through your playbook, is it right, or do I need to zig and zag? Life zigs and zags. And one thing I talk about in the book is when you're throwing lemons, you need to make lemonade out of it, because we're all going to be throwing lemons. None of it's go the way
Yeah.
we thought it was going to go, right? And then you self-reflect, um, and then you got to take responsibility for some of the actions you did. I did some stupid things as a young man. We all do things that we're not proud of, but you got to take responsibility for it, own it, and move on. And the last 2 things is you got to have grit. You just keep on fighting to the end, because if you don't, it's easy to give up, but you've got to fight through that. And the last element of what I call my intentional playbook is just simply, got to have fun. I have a smile on my face most of the time. Even when times are tough, I keep on smiling, because you might as well have fun doing it as opposed to the alternative, which is not having fun. And that's what my intentional playbook was. And once again, I've done that with my family, with business, as I'm talking to teammates, and and one last thing, it's not about making money. It's
Mm.
not about making money. A side benefit of this is I've been very blessed and made some money in my career, but my intention was never to do any of this, become wealthy and drive big fast cars and look what I've done. That is, I don't write about it in the book because I don't think that's where success comes from.
Yeah.
Success is more of having inner peace, and I don't define success as materialistic things.
Yeah. As I look at these as I'm reviewing these things. And folks, you need to know I have 20 pages of notes that we will never get through today. As I look through these in the mini camp for rookies, this being intentional, I want to kind of just hit on a couple of these things. Purpose is one of them that I think I want to go back to just a little bit. I think we oftentimes get, I don't know that we're clear on our purpose. I think we have purpose, but I'm not sure we have clarity of purpose. Do you know what I'm saying there?
Oh, I absolutely.
And I think if we don't get really clear, because it should be a guide for us, right? I mean, if you're clear on your purpose, which I believe is connected to your values, okay, your core values, that should be a guide for whatever you choose to do or not do. Is that how you see it then too?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I have tried to live my entire life is I wake up every day and say, I'm going to be a person of integrity and a person of character. Okay. I'm going to live those two principles. You call them core values. You know, it literally what drives me. And if there's anything that comes in that day that compromises those, I can't do that. So, you know, part of my intention in life was, you know, if I want to be successful, I'm not going to compromise those things. It's not win at all costs, because if I have to win to cheat, I'm not going to win.
Right.
I'm just not going to win. If I have to win to lie, I'm not going to win because I'm not going to lie. And there's a lot of things I call my moral compass that I have lived and by my whole life. And do we all screw up every now and then? Yes. I mean, listen, I you know, there's probably things I'm not proud of, but for the most part, every day I try to live by those core values, and that directs me in the right path and allows me to, when I go to bed and put my head to bed at night and, you know, say my prayer, say, you know, well done, my good and faithful servant. You've done something well. And I'm not embarrassed by what I did that day. And I start my day off by thinking about those things. I really do.
I think it's really important what you say here about winning. I hate to lose. I just hate it.
Hate
it. I'm just telling you right now, the hate of losing is far more intense than the love of winning. I'm just going to be honest with everybody out there. And I am not always a very good loser. Just telling you. But I am not going to cheat to avoid losing.
Right.
Ever. I hate it, but I'm not going to. And I think there's a big difference, right? Some people will push the envelope a little too far ethically or morally. It's okay to say, you know what, I lost. I don't like it, but I lost.
You know, Jay, that's where sports plays such an important role in my life. For a long time, after I left football, I was a very competitive tennis player. Now, tennis is one of those sports that you can call a ball in and out, right? And it could be the difference in winning or losing. I couldn't call that ball out if it was in. I play a lot of golf now. That's something that now that my children are grown, I have time to play golf. I didn't have time to play golf as I was raising children because it took so much time. But now I have time to play golf, and you can move that ball where it's lying, but that's cheating. Right. I mean, right. I mean, it's all those things that
I get it.
There's a right and there's a wrong, and there's no in between. And if you do those things, if I improve my lie, what am I saying about my moral character? Right. I might get a better shot off, but I'm not gonna be able to put my head to bed at night and sleep and think good about myself. So it really is very, very important in how we go about life.
I agree. And as a bad golfer,
which I am too, by the way, I'm not a great golfer, but I'm an honest golfer.
As a bad golfer, I look at being in the rough and in very high grass as being a challenge to see if I could pull something magical off. Is what I like to think of doing. I would rather not move my ball and go, you know what, let's see if I can do something here. You know, because I see it as a challenge. It's not a bad situation. It's just a challenge. And I think when we start looking at life the same way, it's not good. And you talk about this. It's not good or bad. It just is, right? Now it's a challenge, right? Get a little grit, right? And speaking of grit, before we go on here, his name is Stu Crum, and the book is entitled Aim for the Uprights. It's absolutely fantastic. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, Epic Physical Therapy, whether you're coming from recovering from an injury, surgery, suffering everyday aches and pains, maybe you're a professional athlete who just wants to move or perform, or just any athlete wants to perform better. Maybe you're a golfer who wants to improve. I don't know. Listen, the elite team at Epic Physical Therapy will customize a treatment program that is tailored just for you. When you're ready for epic relief, epic recovery, epic results, don't look any further. Go to epicpt.com. It's EPIC. pt.com. And Linda Craft Team Realtors, for going on 40 years, they have been helping people transition in life. You say, whoa, wait, that the real estate people. Yeah, I know, but think about it. Every place you've ever lived has been a life transition. You don't think, listen, just read Stu's book. I'm telling you, it was a life transition every place he moved. They have learned how to take the stress out of that particular part of your move. So listen, when you're ready to buy or sell, it doesn't matter which one it is, they will help you. They've been doing it for 40 years successfully, thousands of people. Just go to lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend Stu Crum. He doesn't know that we're friends. I just made that up right now.
We're friends.
Okay, are we friends? Are we friends?
Yeah, we're buddies.
We're buddies now? Okay, good, man. I'm cool with that, if you're cool with that. And we're having a good time on the show here already, getting through chapter 1. I want to go to chapter 2, entitled Not Napoleon. Great title, by the way. great title. Especially when you set it up when you go on 5'7". You know, it's a great title. Okay, it's just awesome. There's a couple things that you say in this chapter before we get to the intentional playbook. And you say your vision just can't be a word. The leader must live it, be optimistic, and even charismatic in his or her pronouncements, and explain why this is important. To bring an organization along, you must win the hearts of the team members as well as the people they love, their husbands or wives, partners, because they have influence as well. Talk about vision and bringing the team along, and from your experience, and why that's so critical to success in business and in life.
You know, I've always admired people that walk their talk. And when I think about a vision, you know, one of the greatest vision speeches ever given of the time, and no one realized it was a vision speech, was when John F. Kennedy said, I'm going to put a man on the moon. We're going to put a man on the moon in 10 years. And if anybody has a history of that, we hadn't even put anybody in space yet. Right. The Russians were well ahead of us. And that was the greatest vision speech at all. When he gave the speech, the people at NASA didn't even know he was going to say that. So they had to figure. So his vision was, we're going to put a man on the moon. Then we had to figure out how to get there. He believed it. He actually believed it, right? And so when you have a vision, it has to be something that's attainable. It does have to be. And by the way, we put a man on the moon before the Russians did. So we actually achieved his vision as a country. But when you put a vision together, you've got to believe that vision, and you've got to live that vision. There's nothing worse than having somebody that says one thing, but absolutely on a daily basis does the absolute opposite of that. Right. There's no credibility in that, and you lose your audience. You lose any type of credibility that you have with the people that you're working with. And so I think it's important that as a leader of a company, a leader of an organization, by God, the leader of your family, I think, which is probably the greatest team you lead on a daily basis, is a leader of your family. Is when you say we're going to do X, Y, Z, and this is who we're going to be, you've got to walk that talk and live that on a daily basis for the people that are around you. And so, every group I've come to, I just took a brand new CEO job, actually 6 weeks ago. I'm in my offices, which look very sparse because I haven't even decorated them yet. Right now we're working through our strategy deck and our vision deck to present to the board. And it's a lot of hard work, but it's got a goal in mind. And if the goal in mind is going to be, blank, X, Y, Z, and we're going to prepare ourselves for success by doing that. So it's without a vision,
people perish.
People. Thank you very much. Without a vision, people perish. You've got to know where you're going, right? You've got to know where you're going.
Yeah, absolutely, you do.
Absolutely.
I want to do another Stu Speaks.
Okay.
Another Stu Speak, because this is really good at the end of this chapter. Behind every victory lies the story of dedication, perseverance, and sacrifice. Winning requires commitment to excellence and an unwavering desire to succeed. Beautiful. The guy who wrote that's really good. I really like it. I really like what he's written there. The intentional playbook chapter here, we start looking at the playbook. Dig in. It's called Can't Explain. And you say, live a life that can't be explained. Be unique by refusing to merely follow the crowd or commit to groupthink or the clique. When you follow your true interest, you will attract unique and at times inexplicable opportunities. And you talk about the can't explain, and I just did air quotes for those of you listening, game plan. And you talk about own your strengths, diversify, implement, shut down critics with a smile, be helpful, never give in, never, 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 and be a person of character and integrity, and then savor a little every day of the little everyday moments. Of those, where do you see the can't explain game plan? Which one stands out to you as one that you go, yeah, this is when you got to, this is the foundational.
Well, and I've talked about already, but it's the character integrity piece.
Mm.
It really is for me. My foundation of my life is if I say I am somebody, I've got to live those principles, right? And life that can't be explained. And why am I different than other people? Because I want on my tombstone people to say, Stu truly lived a life of integrity. He said what he did and did what he said. And I think that's the key to it. And I tell you, Coach Jay, how I came by this very early in my career. So I've been now working I'm 64 years old. So I've been working, I got cut by the New York Jets in 1985. Do the math. I'm 40 plus years. And my third month in the job, I was working for a new company, good guys, but after work, they decided they're going to go out to a place that my mother would not have been proud of me going. My fiance would not have been proud of me going as well. And I'm not going to say where they asked me to go, but it was a place that they wouldn't have been proud of me going. And I said, guys, I can't go. They said, listen, Stu, this is what we do after work. Once a month after work, we go here. I said, well, I know you do, but I won't. Right. And I won't because my life and my commitment to the things that are important to me won't allow me to do that. Right. And I was 25 years old. I literally thought to myself, I wonder if this is the end of my career, because I've already told all my bosses and everybody that I'm not going.
Right.
But you know what happened? They respected me.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else had told them no before. They respected the fact that I was not willing. I'll tell you, it was a strip joint. Sure. I was not willing to go to a strip joint. I just wasn't willing to go. It wasn't something that my mother would have been embarrassed to me being there. Right.
Right.
And listen, I'm not being critical of others, by the way. I'm just saying, but I kind of live my life like that. There's certain things, I have immutables in my life that are go no goes, and if people can't accept me, they just can't accept me. In fact, what happens is people may not agree with you, but they do respect you. Right. And that's the only thing I have in my life is people to respect me in the very end.
Yeah, I get that, and I think the easy thing to do is to be a chameleon.
Right.
It's just easier to be a chameleon. It's to be whatever people want you to be at that time. But then who are you? Right. And I think that's the part that people are not thinking about is who are you then? If you're going to be whatever everybody else wants you to be, then who are you?
Yeah.
Who authentically are you? And that's a problem. I agree with you. Character integrity is foundational. I agree with that. Never give in, never, never, never. That's that as we're on the subject, that's hard to do for people to go, never give in. You see, Winston Churchill wrote, never yield to fear, never yield to the apparent overwhelming might of the enemy. Talk about never giving in.
Well, there's a chapter on the X Factor.
Yeah, we're gonna get to it,
which we'll get to. But I think you have to listen. You have to, within yourself, you have to be so confident of what you're doing is the right thing to do, and you have to be so committed to that purpose. Going back to the intentional living thing, that you just can't give into it. So as an athlete, which you were, and I was, and I still am. I mean, I'm I guess a golfer, still an athlete. But if I had a goal in mind, and I knew that I need to kick 100 footballs a day to be the very best kicker in the United States, stopping at 95 was not an option. I had to kick those 5 more every day of my life until I was 25 years old, because that's what it took to be in. Never give in. Have a goal, have a purpose, and stay focused on that. Now, there's another chapter on quit to win, which seems kind of hypocritical to what I'm just talking about, but we can talk about what that means in a different instance. But by golly, that's where grit comes. Grit is not giving up when you want to give up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Running that extra half mile if you've ridden 10 miles just because you got to get there. I use a lot of athletic terminologies, but because it's easiest to understand. But it's happened to me in business all the time. I've been some times where I'm in my 5th CEO job now, and there's times where you say, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can turn this business around. I was just made CEO of the business, and it's really struggling. I don't know if I can do this. But I've got to get to my inner self and say, Stu, you were brought in for a reason. You committed to doing this for a reason. You're going to finish this. You're going to finish it well.
Right.
And I think in every instance, I believe I have finished well.
Yeah, I think you have too, by the way. From everything that I've researched about you, I would say yes, you have yes to all of those things. But I think what's interesting is that we don't. I think we have to be obsessive. There has to be almost an obsession with finishing, completing the job, getting it done. You have to be obsessed with that. And I know that earlier in my life, I wasn't. I am now, but I wasn't. And when you're not obsessed with finishing, you're left with regret.
Right. The one thing that I want the listeners to understand also is I'm obsessed with being a great husband. Obsessed. And 40 years of marriage, and you love each other more than you did the day you got married. It's because we really, really, really work hard together. We both do, my wife and I. And I talk about my wife in this book quite a bit, because that's important to me, right? And I was obsessed about being a great father, obsessed with being a great father, right? And how do you define a great father? I'm not sure if there's a definition of a great father, but I was obsessed with it. I mean, truly obsessed with how do I make sure that I am there for my children. And I'm obsessed about being a great CEO right now. So the word obsession, I love it, because if you want to be good, there's been a book written, Good to Great, right?
Yeah, great. Jim Collins, great.
Jim Collins, one of the famous books ever written in business. But how do you go from good to great? And if you allow me to tell a quick story,
go ahead.
About Aim for the Uprights. Do we have time to do that?
Yeah, we got plenty of time. Yeah.
So the name of my title of my book became the metaphor for my life, and it's about being obsessed with something. So the 1983 draft, I was one of the top ranked 3 kickers in the United States, kid from Washington, kid from University of Illinois, and myself, University of Tulsa. And I had a pretty good idea I was going to be drafted. And 2 weeks for the draft, the special teams coach of the New York Giants came out to the field, and he placed 10 footballs on the 30-yard line from hash mark to hash mark. And anybody who understands American football, that's a 30-yard line, it's a 40-yard field goal. And we have hash marks, which are different angles on the field to kick from. And I thought, this is easy. It was my senior year. After my senior year in college, I'd kicked a 57-yarder in a game. I'd kicked like 5 50-yarders. I had a lot of 50-yard field goals. 40 yards was literally, for me, a chip shot at the time. But right before the snapper snapped the ball and the holder put the ball down, he said, "Stop, Stu, stop." I said, "What?" He says, "I don't want you to kick the ball to the goalpost." So what are you talking about, coach? He says, "No, I know you can put to the goalpost. I've seen you do that. I want you to hit the right upright." Now, once again, I know you've got listeners all over the world, but for the listeners, for a rugby fan or anybody, upright goes 3 inches in diameter. It goes about 20 feet in the air. And from 40 yards out, kicking that ball to hit the right upright is almost impossible. It just doesn't happen very often because your accuracy is infantile, right? Well, I wanted to play in the NFL, so I literally kicked the first ball, and as I'm standing here today, I actually hit the right upright. Now, I'm not sure who was more surprised, me or the coach, but I actually hit the thing, and I literally, I just started high-fiving. There's people out watching me kick that day. I was high-fiving people. The coach said, Stu, don't get ahead of yourself. You got 9 more balls to kick. And I went across the field and I kicked 9 more balls. And I, of course, didn't hit the upright on the next 9 balls. But this is the profound statement that actually became a metaphor for my life at 23 years old. At the very end, he said, Stu, do you know why I just asked you to do that? I didn't ask you to kick the ball through the goalpost. I asked you to hit the right upright. I said, Coach, I have absolutely no idea. He says, well, here's what I have found as a coach to professional kickers in the NFL. They come out of college and they kick the football and they aim for the goalpost. Now, the problem is when you're aiming for the goalpost, you miss a little bit right of it or you miss a little bit left of it, you've missed your field goal. What we teach guys in the NFL is in a game, in practice, you find that smallest finite point you can kick at. And you're aiming for that. Now, if you miss 3 feet to the right or 3 feet to the left, guess what? You still have your 3 points. He says, Stu, you have your whole life been aiming for good.
Mm.
I want you to aim for great.
Mm.
Those were his last words to me. He doesn't even know how profound of a statement that was for me, not just as a place kicker, but as a human being. Because I took that lesson at 23 years old and said, Stu, in everything you do, don't just aim for good. If you're going to do it, aim for greatness. And literally that now goes back to, so that's the name of my book, Aim for the Upright. It's because I was aiming for that 3-inch diameter, right? That's what he taught me in that lesson. And that's how I've tried to aim for parenting and marriage and business and friendship and everything I've done is, man, I'm aiming for great. I'm aiming for the upright. I'm not just aiming for the goalpost.
That's awesome. And it was a great story. And I remember reading it. It's can I just tell you though, it's more fun listening to you tell it. I gotta be honest with you, because it's really, you read it and it's good, but when you tell it, it's great. I appreciate
it. But it is true. I mean, and changed my life. That moment on that football field where I'd kicked a gazillion footballs before then, changed my whole perspective.
Yeah,
awesome.
And that leads us to the X Factor.
Yeah,
because you get drafted in 1983 by the New York Jets. You've got some, and at the same time, there's a couple of other stories going on here. You talked about that, and then you talked about that you jump over to subtitle that says "Quit to Begin."
Yeah,
and it's about your son Clayton who quits baseball, goes to tennis, and then he goes back to baseball. He ends up being drafted by Chicago Cubs, by the way.
Right.
And then you get close. You got the other subtitle is "Close One Door, Open Another" because you were cut by the Jets in '85. Right, and you learned a valuable lesson in the business world while with Texaco, and kind of put this all together, and you were with the real estate division, and it said it came ever more clear to me that as a business leader, I was only as good as the people surrounding me. My success was dependent on their success.
Right,
and you ask another question: is pushy an indication of the X factor? Help us understand that.
Yeah. So you actually have to go back on that one. When I started business, it was my goal to be a CEO.
Right.
Okay? Now, a chief executive officer is really a generalist because whether you're running a $100 million company, which I'm running now, running a $4 billion company, which I was running 10 years ago, or running a $100 billion company, there's a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of moving parts that you have to be good at, right? And so you have to become a generalist in that. So I knew that I needed to have real estate in my background, and M&A, which is mergers and acquisitions, and HR was important to have, and operations was important to have, and accounting and finance was important to have, and supply chain was important, all these things. And so as jobs became available, and I'd see them, I worked for a very large oil company. I didn't let those jobs come to me. I went after them. And the one that comes to mind the most was there was a job posted in New Zealand. And I was at the time running the states of Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska. And it came across the desk. And I knew that if I wanted to be an executive, a senior executive, I had to have international experience. So I didn't wait for the phone to ring. I literally picked up a phone, called the managing director in New Zealand and said, I know you don't know me, but you need to hire me. I'm the right guy for this job. And the job was a middle level manager job running the North Island of New Zealand. New Zealand's got North and South Island. And when I say pushy is is I never waited for success to come to me. I had to look for it, because if I waited, it may never have come. And I did that throughout my career. Throughout my career, I was always pushing the envelope and pushing for that next job and next opportunity, because I knew that someday, if I wanted to be a CEO, I had to have that experience.
Mm.
And so that is what I did. And the one thing about my son, and because this is going to be a lesson for parents, I think a lot of parents today live vicariously through their kids. They just do. I want little Junior to be XYZ, and they never let little Junior decide what he wants to do or she wants to do, right? And so when I say quit to win, what that simply meant was, my son came to me when he was 12 years old, and my son, I knew very early he was a great athlete. I could just tell. But he didn't have the X factor. The kid just didn't have the X factor. He wanted to be a professional paintball player. I mean, he wanted to do anything else but be a great athlete, right? And so he said to me, Dad, 12, and listen, I live in Texas, and Texas sports is a religion in Texas. It is a lot of places, but Texas in particular. And he said to me, Dad, I'm tired of baseball. I said, okay, great. What do you want to do? He says, let's play tennis. I said, great, we'll play tennis. And he played tennis for 2 years. And then he came back at 14 and said, I kind of miss my buddies in baseball. Let's play baseball again. And so he quit. He quit for 2 years and came back. Long story short, 17 years old, he's throwing a 93-mile-an-hour fastball, takes his team to state championship in 6A baseball in Texas, and gets drafted by the Chicago Cubs. And so my point, in the point of the story in the book, is this: parents, if your kids want to be great, they've got to be great themselves. Don't push them to do things they don't want to do, because you're going to push them away from those things. I have found so many parents, now I'm a parent of grandchildren, so I'm now starting this journey all over again as a grandparent, but I want children to fall in love with what they're going to do. And if they do, they're going to be great at whatever it is, whether it's music. My little 5-year-old granddaughter's taking piano lessons now at our house, and I just love that, right? And I'm encouraging her to do it, but it's because she wanted to do it. We asked her, do you want to do it? Yes, I want to do that. So that's what quit to win meant. It didn't mean you're a quitter. It meant that you've got to have the desire and the X factor to do that.
I love that.
Hope that's helpful.
No, it's really, really super awesome. His name, by the way, and his name's Stu Crum, the author of Aim for the Uprights, the Intentional Playbook for Success in Faith, Family, Business. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, Epic Physical Therapy. The facility offers the most advanced top-of-the-line equipment, including the Ultra G anti-gravity treadmill, the Normatec compression sleeves. My favorite, Game Ready. That's just a few. Listen, they're trained, certified, and most comprehensive cutting-edge treatments available. Blood flow restriction therapy, dry needling, cupping, it's just a few. Listen, when you're ready for your epic relief, epic recovery, epic results, don't look any further. Go to epicpt.com. It's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft Team Realtors. Listen, I just want you to check out their website, lindacraft.com. It is the one-stop shop for everything. Listings, people they recommend, you want to join the team, all of it, it's right there. lindacraft.com, one of the most comprehensive real estate websites that you will ever find anywhere. They can help you, I promise, no matter where you live. They're independently owned and operated, not affiliated with a national company, so they will find the best real estate professional for you regardless of where you live in the world. Check it out. It's lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend Stu Crum. His book, Aim for the Uprights, right? You heard the story, The Intentional Playbook for Success in Faith, Family, and Business. Absolutely outstanding. It will be getting an Amazon 5-star review from me. And I'm just telling you, it's just really good. Chapter 4, Stu, entitled The Deepest Cut, which is a powerful moment for you. And I'll let you talk the story, but the intentional playbook play is the power play is forgiveness. So maybe we tell the story.
So we've been talking sports a lot. My senior year in high school, I was already given at the end of the football season, I was offered a football scholarship to University of Tulsa, which I accepted. But I was a 3-sport athlete. I played football, basketball, and baseball. Now, we talked about earlier, size, not Napoleon. I'm 5'7", right? I'm not going to be an NBA player. I don't have a 40-inch vertical, and I don't have Steph Curry's shooting ability. But I was a pretty good point guard. I could bring the ball up the court, I could steal the ball, and I could dish the ball off well. And basketball in the United States comes between football and baseball season, and I was also a pretty good baseball player, very humble too. But the coach, I went out, I was the point guard in freshman, sophomore, and junior year. And I knew that my senior year, I was going to be the starting point guard in the varsity basketball team. It was known, and everybody in the team knew it too. Well, the coach, the day of the cuts, came down and said, "Stu, I've decided to cut you from the basketball team because we know that you're not going to have a career in basketball. You're going to play football, but I think this is time for you to get ready for baseball season. It will give you a lot more time to work on your batting and fielding and not concentrate in basketball." I would tell you it was the most devastating day of my life. Literally, to that point, it was the most devastating day of my life. I was cut. I knew that I should be there. I wasn't allowed to hang around my buddies. Those were my buddies in that basketball team, and it was profound. Um, let's fast forward now. 20 years later, I go to my 20-year high school reunion, and that same coach who I remained friends with came to me and said, "Stu, I have to admit this now, but I made a mistake. I should never have cut you." He said, "I cut you because I thought it was for the right reasons to help you in baseball. But two things it did. Number one, we had a sub basketball season that year because we didn't have a point guard to bring the ball up the court. But number two, I know that it affected you dramatically. And Stu, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." I never expected that from him. Um, but I certainly forgave him even before that happened. But that was real forgiveness that he acknowledged it. I acknowledged it. Coach Pratt was his name. And we remained and remain friends to this day. I'm 64 years old. I think Coach Pratt is now in his 90s. But it's just amazing how those things in life can profoundly impact you. But also, I learned to be cut, and I learned that it wasn't fun. I know when I have to let a teammate go from an organization today, the pain that they feel, because I felt that pain. I felt it a couple of times in my life. And so I'm probably a little more empathetic and probably a little better leader as a result of that one act that was done back when I was 17 years old.
I think there's also the power of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Here, right? My wife taught me, who I love dearly, because she teaches me so much. She's the smartest person I know. She told me early on, she said, forgiveness is drinking the poison and hoping someone else will die. And I've never forgotten that.
Pretty deep.
Yeah. Well, because when you harbor it, right, you're not hurting the other person, you're just hurting yourself. When you're harboring unforgiveness.
Yeah.
So when you have unforgiveness, you're drinking the poison. The other person isn't.
Yeah.
And there is a power in release when we will forgive. And it's within our power, but it's not for them, it's for you.
Right. We could do a whole series on unforgiveness. You and I could probably talk about that. Because we're becoming best buddies right now on this podcast. But what's interesting is I've always seen people that have harbored just anger for people their whole life.
Right.
And the person who loses, it's the person who's harboring that anger, because I really do. I have forgiven everybody in my life. Anybody that's done anything, and that reason why is because if I don't, I lose. I'm the one losing. I could be mad at X, Y. I could be mad at that coach who cut me, but you know what? It doesn't hurt him. I'm the one that has that little black mark that's sitting in my heart, that little black stain that doesn't go away until I forgive. And so, amen to that, brother, because your wife's quote is right on. She's smarter than two of us, by the way. I just let things go because I don't want to lose. I don't want my life to be tainted in any way.
And I don't want to live in resentment.
Right.
I do not want to live a life of resentment. I just don't. I'm done.
Yeah.
Resenting others or things or stuff because why? Because I didn't get my way or it wasn't the way I'm done with that because I don't want to live my life that way.
Yeah.
There's freedom. There's freedom without having the resentment and having forgiveness. There's just so much freedom.
Yeah. You can watch the news every night and watch TV and I think people who are listening to this right now see people that are just spending their life trying to get back at other people or resentful, and I feel sorry for those folks. I really feel sorry for them, because I don't know where there any joy comes into their life. I have so much joy because I don't hate people,
Yeah.
and I have this joy because I don't hold resentment against people. That, man, right on.
We could go on forever.
Yeah, we could. So, and I won't, but we could.
So chapter 6 is entitled Raising My Skill Set. And
Yeah.
I want you to talk about this, because I think this is really, really important. I used to teach college, and I used to tell my kids this, and regardless of the class I taught, was you need to learn to speak in public, because it's gonna be a game changer for your career. I promise you that learning to speak in public is an absolute game changer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for you.
It was for me.
Talk about the importance of that and why that's so important. And I mean, to being the CEO, why that one skill changed it.
Yeah. Well, and you got to think about speaking in public. I don't know this to be 100% fact, but you hear is one of the biggest things that people fear in this world. I've heard this for the last 50 years,
it's
right?
True.
It is really true. And I was not a young man that in high school was the student body president, so I never spoke. But I got active in a group called Fellowship of Christian Athletes when I was in college, and it allowed me to speak about 100 times a year, every weekend, and sometimes during the week. I would go to different high schools and youth groups and all kinds of things, and that's where I learned to speak. And what I've learned about speaking is it's all about storytelling too, because people can identify with you if you can tell a story and that story is meaningful. They don't want a bunch of facts thrown at them. They want to know you're real, right? And then I took that from my college days and in business, and I think I can actually point to a day. I can literally point to a day when I was 29 years old, and I was speaking to a group of 600 people in a cafeteria at Texaco, and I was doing a presentation on a particular subject, and I guess I was animated, and I got people excited, and I got people motivated. And it was from that point on in my career, and this is the truth. This is the truth. From that point on in my career, I was designated a high potential employee. I don't think I was any smarter before that day or after that day, but there was something that I did that the executives at that time said, this guy can motivate people, he can lead people, and we're going to put him in a program. And I got put in this high potential program at that point. For people that are listening today, it's painful, but go into your deeper and find something that you're really comfortable on. And if you're going to speak, the easiest thing to do is speak about something that you love, right? And learn to do that, because eventually you're going to be speaking. I mean, when I do board presentations now all the time, and it's not exactly sexy stuff, I will tell you. You're talking about discounted cash flows and return on investment, and what's my EBITDA going to be this month? I mean, I can tell you that it doesn't get a whole lot of people really excited about that, but I do it with passion, and I do it with excitement, and I do it with conviction. And so the folks that are listening to me on the board believe that we're going to achieve whatever goal it is that we want to achieve. And it all started with my commitment to public speaking at a very early age, meaning in my college years, and through the rest of my life, I've had a chance to do it. I've had a chance to speak to the university I graduated from in a commencement speech. And that was probably one of the greatest honors I ever had, because you go back to the school you started at 40 years ago, and it's all those things that just give you an opportunity to hopefully impact somebody's life in a positive way.
I cannot agree with you more. I got to speak at my university, and it was one of the most amazing things I've ever done.
Good for you. So cool.
It is so cool. We've done an hour.
Wow, it seems like 10 minutes, doesn't it?
It goes so fast, man.
Wow.
I really enjoyed you being on the show. People want to find out about the book, get more information about you. Where do they need to go?
Yeah, StuCrum.com. Got a website. how funny is it? I never had a website until I wrote a book, and it was available. I was excited. Not that there's many Stu Crums out there, because there aren't, but StuCrum.com, and my book's on Amazon. And I love people to read it, not because I think that I'm just super fantastic, cool person, but I do think there's a few nuggets in there that can help some people navigate life. And if it can do that, then it was worth writing the book. If people it can make people's lives just a little bit better, then I'm happy I wrote it.
I agree. There is a lot of practical life lessons right here, and aim for the uprights, folks. Get yourself a copy. Stu, stay with me, please. Hey, folks, this is a show. You know what I say to you every week? You're in control of three things: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. Listen, I know life is going to throw a lot of circumstances at you, and I get it. Life can be hard, but you control your positive attitude. Your effort is tied to your excellence. And you know what? We are going to get punched in the gut or knocked in the teeth, but it's up to you to get back up again. Get back up, because I'm going to tell you something. You're worth it, and I believe in you. I'm going to be back next week with another great guest. He's going to have another great book, or she's going to have another great book. It's going to be an unbelievable show, because it always is. As I say to you everywhere, you know, we had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Give us a 5-star positive review everywhere you listen to the show. And I appreciate you so much. As I say to you all over the world, you know what it is. Ciao, everybody.